God, do I have to do this? Do I really have to do this? Okay. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, is directed by William Shatner as his directorial debut, which he insisted on after Leonard Nimoy had already directed 2 films with Star Trek 3 and 4, so he said, you know what, I want to have a shot. And Paramount said, sure, why not? Star Trek 4 was a massive success with critics and at the box office, so they were like, fine, we got some goodwill going here, let's see what happens. What Shatner came back with was a story that was initially called Star Trek V, An Act of Love. Sure, his story idea was to involve fundamentalist Christians in space, and Paramount said, go ahead. Yeah, that was a totally awesome idea. What we got back was a movie that suffered a writer's strike at the beginning, multiple rewrites throughout production, and budgetary costs that ended up saying to ILM, nah, we don't want you anymore. We don't want your groundbreaking visual effects that have pioneered CGI for the rest of time. No, we're going to go with someone cheaper. Good idea. What we got back, what we got through all of that production process, through this inexperienced director, is still considered by many fans and critics as the worst Star Trek film of all time. It's still a joke to nowadays. When people think of a franchise getting to a certain point and then a massive slump, it's like Star Trek V. Good job, Shatner. Now let's break it down. Let's see what's really wrong with this. First off, the villain, Sybok, is slightly interesting. He's played with a bit of charm by actor Lawrence Luckinbill, but the character itself was never referenced at all. He didn't exist until some writer thought, you know what would be great? If we have Spock, we have an evil half-brother named Sybok. Sure, let's do it. No, the character itself doesn't work. He's way too happy about everything. Like, it's almost saccharine sweet happy about everything that's happening. Like, people could be dying in front of him and he'd be like, no, it's okay because it's all God's plan. And that's the worst thing about this character. This character was not only written terribly, but his whole story idea of, I want to find God in the center of the galaxy. I don't really care. We've had multiple Star Trek villains in the TV series and films up to this point, and all of them had infinitely better stories. Even Christopher Lloyd's Klingon Kurge had a better storyline than Sybok. Sybok just isn't. All he does is walk around brainwashing people. And you keep watching, you're thinking, what am I watching? What really am I watching? I'm not watching a Star Trek film. I'm watching an unmitigated disaster. It's shot terribly. It's edited horrendously. This tone is way off. It is way too comedic in many scenes, and then it becomes super dramatic and then goes back to comedic again, and up and down like a really rockety roller coaster that you just want to get off, but you can't until the very final credits, and then you're thankful that it's over and you never have to watch it again. The fact that the whole crew was on a ship that was broken half the time was just something that felt incredibly flat in terms of comedy. The characters have barely any development. Shatner spent too much time into making Kirk the big centerpiece of the movie, which is something that Leonard Nimoy never did. In his Star Trek films, Spock was kind of to the side, especially in Star Trek 3, where Leonard Nimoy playing Spock didn't even show up till the very end of the movie. So that allowed Leonard Nimoy to really grasp, okay, this is how I'm going to do the other characters, and this is how I'm going to explore this story without me in there. But William Shatner said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make Kirk the real crux of everything. I'm going to make him the big action hero that I've always wanted to be. No, I'm sorry, you failed at that because you never were an action star. Ever, okay? You're just a weird old man who keeps putting himself into roles that he just doesn't fit in. He completely short-shrifted Sulu, which is just, like, I've seen Sulu not have that much of a role in the previous films, but in Star Trek V, it's just awful. He's like a glorified cameo. Scotty gets hit on the head and is unconscious for a good section of the movie, which is just bizarre. Shatner just seemed to just not really care about this crew, this cast of characters that we've grown so well to love, that Star Trek IV spent so much time taking all these characters, splitting them off, and having them all have their own great little moments, their great little interactions. Star Trek V just doesn't do that at all. We spend too much time on, oh, Kirk and his thing. I'm sorry, but the story just doesn't gel in my mind anymore. I know that I can remember that they're going to find God at the center of the galaxy, but I cannot remember for the life of me why there's Klingons in this movie, what the hell that fake God ended up really being, why Cyborg wanted to do anything he wanted to do, and how he had that weird power where he could brainwash everybody. None of it really makes sense. I wouldn't say it's the worst Star Trek film. It's pretty far down the list. It's second. You'll find out what my worst film is. And I only put it second because there is maybe one or two little tiny things that I think, okay, that wasn't so bad. The introductory scenes of our crew of characters is fine, where we're seeing them on shore leave. They're having some nice camping trips and hiking in the mountains and stuff like that.
We've been caught in a blizzard.
And we can't see a thing. Request you direct us to the coordinates.
My visual says sunny skies and 70 degrees.
Sulu, look. The sun's come out. It's a miracle.
There's a great few little comedic scenes that work. I have to say that those work. However, that's just the start. The rest of the movie keeps going on, and by the time you've gotten to halfway, you've forgotten that nice little time you had at the very, first 5 minutes of the movie.
And the other tiny thing that I actually liked about Star Trek V was this scene right here, which has Cyborg showing Dr. McCoy the true desire in his heart, something that he's always wanted. It's a really powerful scene, mainly because DeForest Kelley was always fantastic as Bones. Personally, he is my favorite character, and this scene right here is a true emotional high point because of how great DeForest Kelley's performance is. If it was in a better movie, I would have been over the moon. Because William Shatner didn't direct this whole movie properly, this scene, while it is emotionally powerful and quite dramatic, comes kind of out of nowhere when the rest of the film is trying to be this big, fun, stupid adventure.
Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke, and I'm happy that I never have to watch it again. And I'd have to say that it's just definitely not worth your time. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Have you seen it? Please tell me what you think about it. Also, don't see it. Next up is Star Trek VI. Now that one I feel much better to talk about than this one. Thank you for watching.